The city of Karachi had a way of swallowing people's dreams whole, but for Anaya Qureshi, it had done something worse. It had started timing them. Monday was no longer just a day on the calendar. It had become a deadline that could destroy her career, erase her years of sacrifice, and humiliate her in front of an entire boardroom of executives who had already decided she did not belong in their world. And on a warm, restless Friday afternoon, standing in the glass office of one of the country's most powerful production houses, she was told the condition that shattered her remaining calm. She needed to appear married by Monday. Not for love, not for life, but for image. For survival. For a promotion that had taken her 5 relentless years to reach within touching distance. The director who delivered this impossible condition was Hamza Rauf, a man known across the industry for his ruthless precision, silent authority, and ability to turn chaos into success. Yet when Anaya turned toward him in disbelief, asking him through trembling composure why he would be the one to suggest such a thing, the room did not respond with clarity. It responded with silence that felt heavier than judgment. Because even Hamza himself seemed trapped inside a decision he had not fully chosen, as if the system above him had already written the ending and he was only forced to perform it. If this story moves you even a little, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Echo Tellies. Your support keeps stories like this alive, and reminds the world that kindness and second chances still matter. Anaya walked out of that office carrying more than paperwork. She carried the weight of humiliation disguised as opportunity. For years, she had been the backbone of the creative team, fixing broken schedules, rewriting failed scripts, and turning impossible deadlines into award-winning productions. But the industry she loved had a habit of asking women to prove themselves twice as hard and still doubting them anyway. And now, in a twist that felt almost unreal, her competence was not the issue. Her personal life was. The condition was simple in words but impossible in reality. The company's upcoming merger depended on public perception, and the board believed that a single unmarried woman in a leadership position would weaken investor confidence. Anaya's professional brilliance meant nothing to them if she did not fit their outdated image of stability. And so, a solution had been forced into existence that reduced her entire identity into a fabricated marital status. That evening, Anaya sat alone in her small apartment overlooking the noisy streets of Clifton. The city moved on as if nothing had changed, unaware that her world had collapsed into an invisible corner. Her phone kept lighting up with messages from colleagues, some sympathetic, some curious, and some quietly judgmental. Each notification felt like another reminder that her dignity had been placed on trial without her consent. Across the city, Hamza Rauf remained in his office long after everyone left. He stared at the skyline through reinforced glass, not seeing the lights but the consequences of a decision he had not been able to stop. He had not proposed the condition out of cruelty. He had argued against it. He had even refused it at first. But in the hierarchy above him, refusal did not always mean freedom. It only delayed obedience. Hamza had built his career on discipline and control, but there were systems even he could not control. And yet, what unsettled him most was not the board's demand. It was Anaya Qureshi's face when she realized the truth. Not anger, not pleading, but quiet disappointment. As if she had expected more humanity from him, and he had failed that expectation without even speaking. The following morning, Anaya did something unexpected. Instead of searching for excuses or alternatives, she began searching for structure. If life had forced her into an absurd role, she would treat it like a performance. She made lists, studied behaviors, observed couples around her city, and tried to understand what society expected from a relationship that was supposed to look real but feel entirely manufactured. The idea was not to deceive with joy, but to survive with precision. By afternoon, she made a decision that surprised even herself. If she was going to enter a fabricated marriage for appearances, she needed someone stable, predictable, and emotionally distant enough not to complicate the arrangement. Someone who would not exploit the situation, someone who understood boundaries, and someone who would not collapse under pressure. And somehow, against all logic, her mind returned to Hamza Rauf. She did not want him. She did not trust him. But she understood him in a strange, professional way. He was structured, controlled, and painfully disciplined. He would not panic. He would not manipulate. And most importantly, he was already part of the system forcing this decision. If she had to walk into a storm, she would rather walk with the person who had seen the storm coming. When she arrived at his office again that evening, the city outside was burning in late sunlight. She did not arrive with emotion. She arrived with calculation. She presented her proposal as if it were a contract, not a plea. A temporary arrangement. A professional agreement. A shared burden to satisfy an external demand. No romance, no expectations, only survival. Hamza listened in silence. For the first time in years, he felt something shift in his control-driven world. He had expected anger or refusal or emotional collapse. What he did not expect was logic turned into desperation. Anaya was not asking him for help. She was asking him to share responsibility for something neither of them had created. He asked himself silently why she had chosen him. Why she had walked past every other option and stopped at the one person who symbolized the system she resented. And in that moment, he realized the answer was uncomfortable. Because he was safe. Not kind, not warm, not close. Just safe in a world where safety was rare. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he asked for time, even though time was exactly what they did not have. The next 2 days passed like a tightening rope. Hamza reviewed every possible outcome while Anaya constructed an entirely new version of her public identity. They exchanged documents, schedules, and carefully curated details of a life that did not exist. Every step felt like building a bridge over a canyon that kept widening beneath them. Yet something unexpected began to happen in the silence between their planning. Small moments of understanding started forming without intention. Hamza noticed how Anaya never complained, even when exhausted. Anaya noticed how Hamza never raised his voice, even when pressured. Both were used to controlling chaos, but not used to witnessing each other's quiet endurance. On Sunday night, just hours before the deadline, they rehearsed their appearance for the first time in a simulated environment arranged by the company's event team. It was meant to ensure credibility. But what it revealed instead was vulnerability. Standing beside each other in a staged setting, they realized how little they knew about pretending to belong in something so deeply personal. Anaya felt the weight of the coming morning like a storm pressing against her chest. Hamza, for the first time in years, felt uncertainty not as failure but as responsibility toward another human being. Neither of them spoke of fear, but it lived between them like an uninvited presence. Monday arrived too quickly. The boardroom was filled with polished faces, expensive suits, and expectations disguised as professionalism. Every detail of Anaya's appearance had been curated to perfection, and beside her stood Hamza, calm and unreadable as always. To everyone watching, they looked like a couple carefully aligned by time. But inside, both knew they were walking a fragile line between truth and illusion. The presentation began, and with it came questions, scrutiny, and silent judgment. Every answer Anaya gave was measured. Every gesture from Hamza was deliberate. Together, they constructed a narrative that satisfied the room, not because it was true, but because it was stable enough to believe. And then came the moment that shifted everything. One of the senior board members questioned the authenticity of their relationship, pressing into personal details that were never meant to exist. The room grew tense, waiting for cracks to appear. Anaya felt the pressure rising, not because she feared exposure, but because she feared what would happen if Hamza chose silence instead of support. But Hamza did not hesitate. He stepped forward, not emotionally, not theatrically, but with calm certainty. He reinforced their story not with exaggeration, but with consistency. And in doing so, he protected her, not the arrangement, not the company, but her dignity. Something inside Anaya shifted in that moment. She realized the arrangement had stopped feeling like a performance and started feeling like shared survival. By the end of the meeting, the board approved the merger conditions. The crisis dissolved. Relief filled the room. But for Anaya and Hamza, something more complicated had begun. They were dismissed separately, yet neither left immediately. Anaya stood by the corridor window overlooking the city that had once felt like a trap. She thought about how easily her identity had been reduced, and how unexpectedly it had been defended. Hamza joined her there without announcement, as if silence was the only language left between them. No confession was made. No declaration was offered. But something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that survival had brought them closer than intention ever could. Days later, the arrangement quietly dissolved as planned. The company moved on. The board forgot the details. The city continued its endless rhythm. But Anaya did not return to the same version of herself. She returned with something new. Not dependence, not illusion, but awareness that dignity sometimes survives in the most unexpected alliances. And Hamza, who had spent years believing control was the highest form of strength, began to understand that responsibility toward another person sometimes required letting control soften into presence. A month later, Anaya received a promotion she had once thought was the end goal. But what mattered more was not the title. It was the fact that she had earned it without losing herself. And Hamza, in his quiet office overlooking the same skyline, realized something he had never considered before. Some decisions that begin as obligations end up reshaping the people who make them. Just before the final reflection, a special request to those watching: pause for a moment and comment below if this story touched your heart in any way, because every voice reminds us that humanity still matters in the smallest, quietest decisions. If this story reached something inside you, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Echo Tellies. Your support allows stories like this to continue, stories about dignity, second chances, and the unexpected ways people find understanding in a complicated world. And in the end, what Anaya and Hamza discovered was not a perfect ending, but something far more real. A reminder that sometimes life does not give love or certainty on time, but it does offer moments where two strangers stand on the edge of pressure and choose, even briefly, to protect each other's humanity.